I'm thinking about my story from last month about Shlomo Mansour, who is the oldest hostage currently being held in Gaza. As a young child, survived the bloody Iraqi Farhud. He went on to live another 70 years in the kibbutz. Then at age 85, was grabbed in his pajamas and violently shoved to his car and driven into Gaza on October 7th. I get emotional when I think about this guy. I'm sorry. It's like, it really affected me. Like talking to his daughter and his grandson, like this buff kid who's like a personal trainer now, talking about how his Saba, his fondest memory is building a SpongeBob SquarePants doll out of wood with him in the workshop. It was just, it got you, you know? My name is Joel Chaushu, and I'm the Quebec correspondent for the Canadian Jewish News. I think these stories are worth telling. We can do that with your help. Visit the cjn.ca/donate to support our work. You'll get a quarterly magazine and a tax receipt to boot. What's not to love?
And what this book is all about, really, is the community. My era maybe encouraged a community to get together. It was a real community. And there's no community now. It's just like, buy your ticket and go in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Benmergui. Welcome to Not That Kind of Rabbi. I hope you're having a good day, a good moment. You may be walking and listening, or in the car and listening, or at the house and listening. Who knows with this crazy technology we call the internet. I just finished reading a book that is, to say it's a book isn't quite accurate. It's an experience. It's visual. It's a whole community of people talking together about an entire time, and particularly in the music and movies and culture scene of Toronto. It's also a bit of a, for me anyway, a flashback to a whole bunch of things where I go, oh, I was at that. I remember that. Oh, yeah, okay. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that one. It's written by somebody I've known for a long time, and he's had an impact on the city of Toronto, particularly culturally, for a very long time. And we even went to the same schools. We weren't in the same grade, but we went to the same school. And over the years, I'd go, oh, wow, look at Gary. Isn't he just doing, he's doing that. The first thing I can say is that if you ever were living in Toronto at, I don't even, what would it be, the 70s, and it was the Roxy, and it was the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and all of these wonderful things. But there's so much to talk about, so I'm not going to waste any more of my and your time talking about it. I'm going to introduce you to Gary Topp. Gary, welcome to Not That Kind of Rabbi.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So what made you decide you wanted to put all this together?
Right before COVID in 2020, I put out a graphic novel, which was a bunch of memories that I had. And people started asking me, you should write a bio. I wasn't interested in writing a bio. And then 2.5 years ago, a guy named Derek Emerson, who's got a publishing company and works at a very high-end printing company, said, we'd like to do a book on you. You know, I didn't think much of the career other than that I had a great job and I got to see music for free, basically, or, you know, thousands of dollars if it didn't do well. But when Facebook came around, and I figured out how to post posters from past events, I started realizing that, people were commenting, oh, I met my wife there, which I met my wife at the Roxy. Or, that was the first time I smoked dope, or whatever, right? All these memories. And as I kept posting things, I really got the feeling that maybe I had done something impactful at the city.
One of the things I really noticed about all of the endeavors that you have been involved in is you had this kind of Zen-like ability to just let it be, that you could bring things together but you weren't going to make sure it was all well behaved, it was all right. It actually seemed to me that sometimes the chaos that would come out of the choices you'd made to book certain people in certain situations and certain venues, you enjoyed that part where it was like, wow, this is really out of control and weird. Instead of going, no, everybody out right now. Now, on the other hand, you did kick people out when things were good, but you had a certain, I don't know, attraction to staying confused, leaving things messy, and instead of I'm going to button down and nail everything down, and this is going to be profitable no matter what, and all of that didn't seem to be part of your wheelhouse.
We did let things flow. We never really had any problems. Yeah, we had a couple, like a guy screaming at Cecil Taylor, a jazz pianist who, the audience member, the music was driving him crazy. He just jumped up, and started screaming, and they had to drag him out into the lobby, and he was going to sue us and all this stuff. We had one punk show at the Edgerton's that were a gang of hoodlums from Hamilton who liked the band, came in and just scared the shit out of everybody. We had a riot. The very last show we did at the Horseshoe Tavern was called The Last Pogo, which was a play on words with the band's Last Waltz. And at the end of the night, some off-duty cops who had been drinking at the bar got a little out of hand and thought everything was out of hand. I mean, there were like 700 people in the place with a capacity of about 5. But they wanted to stop the show, and Teenage Head were on stage, and they went up and they were talking to the manager on stage, and I was told to get on the mic where I was sitting at the soundboard and to ask everybody to politely to leave, that the show was canceled, was being stopped, and I did that. And being the DJ that I was, I pressed the button on the tape recorder, and on came Anarchy in the UK. And immediately it was like a ballroom brawl, wooden
chairs flying,
flying, slamming. It was like lumberjacks, like 100 lumberjacks right behind you,
And what did you do at that moment?
I just let Anarchy in the UK play. And, I watched my head, watched out for my head. It was pretty wild. I mean, most people left and they were all out in the street, but, there's kind of a historical thing to that show being an actual riot, which didn't usually occur.
Some of the people in the book actually said that's the kind of thing Gary really liked.
Well,
is that fair?
I think he's wrong. I know. kind of objected to that comment, but I don't think I really was into people getting hurt.
No.
I remember all through my career and even having kids, I always go back to when I was a kid and allowing the kids in the crowd, my kids, live their lives like I did. I gave them leeway. And most time, I don't think the audiences were really that violent. It was just a thing of the times, right?
Yeah. I mean, the punk scene itself, you never knew. It's like
you didn't know what was going to happen. And like even at the Roxy, you never knew what was going to happen each night.
How did you manage that?
Plane.
How did you manage that never knowing part? Because that's what I mean by...
Oh, we were on drugs. Smoked a lot, as everybody else did. There were There were, you could smoke in theaters and
Yeah.
allowed anything. I never had anybody busted. Cops in those days, the police would do their neighborhood walks up and down the sidewalks, and they weren't driving like they do today. They'd come in the winter or whatever to get warm, to get a snack or whatever. They'd go in and sit there. They'd open the doors, and it would be like a blast furnace, a pot, and they never bothered us. We had really good press. Especially the Toronto Star loved us. I think gave the kids in those days something new. We taught them something. I always asked my wife, Heather, why did you come to the Roxy? And she said, you could never see those foreign films anywhere.
That's true.
With that kind of thing, we had a very good reputation.
Yeah, the Roxy really was, there was nothing else like it at the time, right? I mean, the rep theaters weren't up and running. I remember going there and smoking and sitting there and watching two movies that I will never see anywhere at that point in time. There was no internet, no streaming, no nothing. You just got your usual first run movies with an intermission and all the rest. But this was a whole new thing. Did that just come to you to do this, or were there other people you looked at somewhere else in North America or the world and thought, oh, they're doing rep theaters in this kind of way with a Fellini movie and then a spaghetti Western, and that's the evening, or was it just something you came up with?
Well, I always kind of wanted to run a movie theater. I used to show movies with a friend in his basement. My dad had a 16 millimeter projector. And we'd charge everybody at like Forest Hill Collegiate, we'd charge them $1. They'd get a Coca-Cola, bottle of Coke. And we started showing like 3-hour or 5-hour cliffhanger serials. And we'd show the whole thing in one night. And that included like changing each reel. So it ended up being like another 2 hours. We'd maybe have a joint or some joints going around and stuff. And I got into that. And then, I was running a movie theater, film society rather, on Davenport, just east of Yonge Street, in an old French restaurant called La Maison d'Or. And rented the basement and had a film society for like 2 years. And I was starting to learn how to promote and get the word out to the newspapers, and I was showing movies in an old butcher shop on Yonge Street, just above Roxborough. And it was always sold out. I couldn't believe we never got busted because you'd have in the window on Yonge Street the poster of the movie that Saturday. Now, this Saturday.
Yeah. You had to have a certain amount of chutzpah because you just wanted, like, it's one thing to have a passion for something and really love it. It's another thing to go, I'm going to make this real and I'm going to make it retail, right?
I was a wayward high school student. Absolutely the worst days of my life. I was not interested in school at all, trigonometry, all this. And my parents, although they knew what I wanted to do, they liked what I wanted to do, but they wanted me to do well in school. So I was kind of not locked with a key, but locked in my room my whole school career studying. And what I did was listen to the radio silently, quietly.
Yeah.
And read magazines and look at art and, the whole thing. And I studied Andrew Loog Oldham's style of promoting the Rolling Stones in the early 60s. And I had it all planned. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. In high school, when I was in one of the years I was in grade 13, they sent out a questionnaire. I don't know if you remember, Mr. Mosey was the principal.
Sure.
He was like, I don't know if I can swear on him, but he was a prick. And he actually looked like Hitler. I really hated the guy. And they sent around these questionnaires, to fill out what you wanted to do when you got out of grade 13. And I wrote, I don't know. Because as you know, everybody was going to be a lawyer, a doctor,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
dentist. I kind of wanted to be a dentist, but not really. I played with my mother's mouth and in a microscope, all the little tools and stuff. She even bought me a little mirror, but I knew what I wanted to do, and well, I said I don't know, so they sent me to the Jewish Vocational Center, which was on Beverly. You know
Hmm.
that film? I think it's called Three Strangers. It's CNN did a number of years ago about
Yeah.
three Jewish brothers who had been separated at birth, and they went through this whole process at sort of the same kind of place as the Jewish Vocational Center. And anyway, I went there for counseling and testing to find out what I wanted to do when I got out. After a week of all this stuff, I came out, I had the little form, gave it to Mosey. He wants to be a DJ. Like that's what they knew. Like, I was telling these counselors all about Bob Dylan and stuff. They didn't know anything about that. So,
Right.
I had it all in my, I liked to counterculture,
Yeah.
to counterculture. And I had it in my blood. I was kind of, I wouldn't say I was a rebel, but I was really. And I just did my own thing. And it just went over the top with people just picked up on it and
Why
liked
would why
the
wouldn't you
style.
why wouldn't you say you were a rebel? You were a rebel.
Well, I guess I was. I mean, I wasn't like a rebel with a cause. I was a rebel with a cause.
You were a rebel with a
I
cause.
was. But anyway, I don't know what I'm talking
No, I mean you're like an evangelist
about.
and not about you also had something that you can't buy or develop on your own. You had taste. You
I
had
had my taste.
yeah, but
Yeah.
you stuck by your taste. You didn't think,
Yeah.
well, they didn't like that one. I better not do that again. I mean, you
Well,
just kept doing the things that you believed were the best art forms and messengers of those arts for the audience.
I would never, I would never book a movie that I didn't believe in, or pretty much maybe 90% of the time would never book a performer that I didn't believe in. I mean, I loved the movie Airport. I could go
Right.
to the Carlton Cinema and watch that 2 times a week. As long as they played, we could, like Rocky Horror Show, my friends and I could just spurt out the lines uh, before they happened, and but I wouldn't show the Poseidon Adventure because I thought it was a terrible movie.
Right.
I just had my own taste, whether anybody liked it. Some Wilder Penfield, who used to write for the Telegram and the Toronto Sun, in the early days of my career, to inform media was to drive around the city all day long and drop off, packages to everybody. And one day I was in front of the Toronto Sun and I ran upstairs. You had to run because you didn't want to get a parking ticket. And I gave something to Wilder and he looked at it and he said something that just I always appreciated. We'll never forget, really. He said, he would never, he may, he knew that I gave him all this stuff. I never pushed him to do anything. He said, I'll always do what I can. I may not like the stuff, but I will always check it out because he trusted me. He trusted
Right.
my taste, which, is quite a nice little thing for
Yeah, I
some.
mean, look at the Roxy and at the New Yorker. If you had a night that you had curated, I just took for granted that, well, it's going to be good in one way or another, because I just kept seeing things that I just thought, wow, that movie actually did not have a happy ending, or wow, that movie just didn't end really. There was no resolution. There was no Hollywood in that movie, and this one felt. Uh, like I was in a dream, and then the next one felt like I was in a nightmare. And every time I had an experience of something that had authenticity all over it. And when I think about the way you booked music and film, I think of authenticity. That's what it seemed to be. If somebody was authentically who they were, even if they were in different genres of music, for instance, you just go, that is what I'm looking for. If it's jazz, if it's punk, if it's pop, whatever it was, you would just go boom. Like I remember going to see Tom Waits at the New Yorker, and I go and sit down, and there's a lamppost and a bench,
Street
and
lamp, street
yeah,
lamp.
street lamp, and he comes out, and he just was surreal. It was fantastic,
Yeah,
right? And a lot of people thought, who is this guy who talks like this and who has been drinking,
yeah.
and you're just like, who the hell's this? But it worked because he was for real. In his own way, he was for real.
I'm Michael Weisdorf, Chief Executive Officer with the Canadian Jewish News. We've put a lot of effort into trying to engage with the younger audience and the younger demographic, those who haven't really engaged with the CGN recently. They don't realize we're back. They say, I absolutely remember reading this on my Booby and Zadie's dining room table or my parents' den. We're trying to bring the Canadian Jewish News into the 21st century. The Canadian Jewish News is a not-for-profit organization, and we're also a registered journalism organization with the CRA. So we can provide tax receipts for donations at any level to help support the Canadian Jewish News and help us continue providing free, high-quality journalism for the Jewish community. You can support us at thecjn.ca/donate. Thank you for your support and for being a part of our journey.
There's the Roxy, there's the New Yorker, there's the Edge, and there's concert promotion after that. Tell me about the Garys, because that is how I understood it, was always the Garys. But it sounds, when I go through the book, you couldn't hope for a more simpatico duo of people. There just seemed to be something about the two of you together that just worked.
Yeah, when we were at the New Yorker, when Jeff and I moved from the Roxy to the New Yorker, we needed a snack bar built. We wanted to sell Nathan's hot dogs on the street. We needed a better snack bar so we could make some money on the side, right?
Right.
And we were introduced to Gary Cormier, who came as a carpenter. And the more I talked to Gary Cormier, he had been an agent, and we just really hooked together. And Jeff and I asked him if he wanted to join us to work on the concerts, because I was getting ready to, after 2 different movies every night for 6 years, it's really hard to program them to be interesting and creative and find new stuff. It was only so much available. It was all film. It wasn't, it wasn't online, So when we formed the Garys, he lived on King Street above what I think it's still open, the Kit Kat.
Right.
Across from
King and John. Yeah.
Yeah. And I lived on Charles Street. And it was amazing the rapport we had, where we knew what each other was doing without even having meetings. We took on, I did all the promo, I did immigration, we both did taxes, we both promoted. It just worked magically. We really had something special going on. It was almost like there was like a tin can in each home, with a wire going across with kids, right? And it just worked magically. Around 1993, I had just had enough. I hated the business. It was becoming just a rat race and mainstream and not interesting. The music was terrible and the Eagles were terrible, and I had to quit. and that was the year that I worked for you at
Right.
Breslin, on Friday night. And that was sort of the end of the Garys there.
Do you
Forget
miss all this? I mean, when you look through the book like this and you see everybody's comment, for me, it was a rush to be somebody who would occasionally show up for what you were doing. But do you miss that curation and that cultural statement that you were making?
I think I still do it. My ideal retirement hobby, because I still get to curate.
Mhm.
I feel I do good for the people that I book. I still promote the shows like I would, a bigger venue. It's all the same. It brings me back also to, my teenage years, early 60s, when we went to, folk clubs and jazz clubs that were like living rooms, in Yorkville or
Yeah.
Yorkville. And no, it's perfect. And, the odd artist that comes through, very odd, that I've been working with for years. I'll do a show with there's an artist, Jonathan Richmond, who's playing at the concert hall. And what this book is all about, really, is the community. My era maybe encouraged a community to get together. I think maybe that's true, but it was a real community. And there's no community now. It's just like buy your ticket and go in. And
Yeah.
this was a community that myself and everybody that was there was fighting for their lives. Were fighting for their lives. They were teenagers at the time. I was older. I felt their emotion, their anxiety, whatever, and I just ran everything the way I felt, and that's doesn't exist anymore. At one point I wanted the book to be called Community Service, but everybody thought it would just be sort of like homeless people and all that. And
Yeah.
but it was community service.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you see. What you're talking about is systemic and real in that we have moved from community in every form and shape that it can take, be it spiritual, artistic, civic, all of those things. That has now evaporated into individualism, where you don't need to talk to your neighbor. You don't need to do anything but buy your own ticket, make sure that you're sitting in a place where nobody bugs you, watch a thing and go home. And we're now in that. And people don't have that same feeling. But I always got the feeling that when you were opening these different venues, the people kept coming back because they felt like they belonged to something, and they belonged to something that said, this is not business as usual. This is our expression of community and personal impact. They wanted to be part of something where they made a difference, but they wanted to do it with a whole bunch of other people who thought they were making a difference too.
I think you say it better than I do. He hijacked my brain, like at the New Yorker when we started doing. I mean, it's the same with the movies, but a good example was at the New Yorker. The first act that we really did was the Ramones, followed by a North Indian sarod player like Ravi Shankar followed, and these kids came to that.
Yeah.
See that, a classical East Indian came to see Cecil Taylor, came to see punk rock, came to see jazz because they trusted us.
Yeah.
And that's a very fulfilling thing for me to have, to know that I kind of made a difference. I think I'm not talking egotistically, but I think so. I think I made a difference.
Yeah. I mean, before that, try to remember, before you did all this, this was not a destination for counterculture. This was not a destination for a big expression. That, the Ontario Censor Board had more cultural impact than any particular artist at that point. You know,
Yeah.
you have to take that scene out. You know?
Well, you know what? I went to when I went to Centennial College the first 3 years it was open on Warden and Sinclair, and or Warden and Dufferin, Danforth rather. And immediately, because I had experience in running event movie shows in the places like I told you, and I started a film society, which became very influential in the school, and it got to the point where the school administration was kind of giving us trouble. Anyway, I brought in the Chelsea Girls, Andy Warhol's 3 hour on two screens thing, and we were showing it we were going to show it one night, and the censor board, no, the morality squad,
Oh my God.
a morality squad, that's what they were called, came in and busted us. Took the movie away, and we were lucky because one of the teachers at Centennial College was a lawyer, was a judge rather, and he said, "Well, here's how you beat that. You start a film society with memberships, and then you can."
Right.
So we did all that, and I would show all these movies. But
You did what you believed to be a good thing to do.
for me,
And yeah, but you weren't going to get rich. You weren't going to get
No.
rich. You know,
no, I mean, I've never
you weren't
been.
going to be a dentist. You know,
No,
like it wasn't going to work that way.
Well,
God
you
love
know,
your
like-
mother, by the way, for
like
letting you do
like I
that.
say, I saw I got to see the place,
Yeah.
and it cost me, a few $1,000s.
Yeah. I mean, what, the first
One-
time
one-
the police came to play, what did you get? Like 4 people were in the audience?
Well, I don't know. I claimed 60 over 2 nights. Other people claim 30 over 2 nights. Record that we have says 60, so I'm going to go with that. But Gary and I was doing lights for the police, and he was standing behind the soundboard, and we look at each other. I look back at him, and I said, "This band would be great outdoors."
Hmm.
It's in 1978 with 30
Yeah.
people in the audience or whatever. And, years later, we did 3 police picnics that went from 25,000 people to 30 to 50. And,
Crazy.
that was the whole name of the game. I didn't care. I was interested in the music that I liked, and I booked out of my record library. I could be listening to somebody like Georgie Fame or the Trogs and say, should bring them in. They're, nobody's going to bring them in. And it was all about that. And if we made money, we made money. But I loved the challenge of taking somebody I believed in, as Wilder said, he'll always trust me, and I always trust myself. I said to him, "Listen, you don't have to like it. As long as I like it, that's all that counts. And if I can make money, but I like the challenge of turning people on to somebody." It's a great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the industry got so greedy. There's very little loyalty in the business.
Or risk. There's very little risk. It's very risk adverse. It's just give me more of what I just saw.
We're the last people to get paid. Promoters are the last people to get paid.
Yeah.
At the Roxy, I was showing Fritz the Cat one night, and the film distributor came in, goes to the box office. "Let me see how many tickets you've sold." He sees the ticket count. He says, "I want to count the people. It looks more crowded than that." I get up, I turn the lights on, stop the movie. I tell the audience, the Roxy people in the audience would love this, right? Listen, the film industry, he doesn't believe me that there's this many people in there. He counts, he's got somebody with him, and they're counting every seat.
Oh my God.
Literally, it was like 2 people off or something, and they were like guests.
Right.
So they're
It's
promoters
all
are the
good.
last person to get paid.
Yeah. He Hijacked My Brain is the name of the book. Gary Topp is the man behind the brain kidnapping. And I want to thank you for what you did and what you still do, because I think the love and the loyalty you had and the cultural shift that happened because of your search for that authenticity is just made a huge impact on this city and changed it from being, Sleepy Hog Town into a place where people came to do interesting and exciting things. So I thank you for that.
Did you see my class picture with Larry Tannenbaum?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he made a little more money than you.
I was expecting you to be talking about the Menorah restaurant and
people
used to go with a flashlight at night because there were no street lights and
the Menorah and then the Bagel King, the Menorah.
The Bagel King,
All right, Gary, you take care of yourself, okay?
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
Thank you.
He hijacked my brain, Gary Topp, not that kind of rabbi. If you want to find out more about some of the things I do, I have a website, ralphbenmergui.ca. My book, I Thought He Was Dead, is available on that website. And I am also an ordained spiritual director, and think of that as a spiritual coach or companion. And if you're interested in doing that, just send me a note and we can have a conversation to see how it goes. In the meantime, take care of each other, and we'll hear you again on Not That Kind of Rabbi.
Hi, I'm Avi Feingold. I'm the co-host of Bonjour Chai on the CJN Podcast Network and a contributing editor for the CJN magazine. Bonjour Chai is Canada's weekly Jewish discussion and debate podcast. We discuss the issues that are important to Jewish Canadians. The stereotype of Canadians is that we either all agree with each other or we disagree and we don't want to talk about it and we don't fight and we don't argue. We do our thing quietly and off to the side. And it's not always true. I like to think that Canadian Jews have strong disagreements, but that are respectful about it. I think historically that has been the case. And hearing two people disagree in a loving, friendly, idea-based sort of way, hopefully is a model for other people to have these conversations themselves. And I think it's important for people to be able to hear these things. We can't do this without your support. Your donation goes a long way to helping us bring you the stories that you want to hear. Please visit thecjn.ca/donate. And if you're Canadian, you can even get a tax receipt.